Hello, everybody. Welcome to Idio Talk, a Radiohead podcast, or should I say, Idio Bat, a Bruce Wayne podcast? I couldn't think of a better modified title for this episode. Can you?
I had nothing planned, but I love what you got.
All right. Welcome to Idio Bat. This is this is a very baffling deviation from what we usually do here. Now, listeners who have stuck with us so far, they know that this is a podcast where your hosts, and we should introduce ourselves. I am one of your hosts, Walker Glenn.
And I am Zach Glenn.
We're the Glenn brothers.
Our alter egos.
Our alter egos, correct. Yeah, but today we are called...
the Bat Glenn brothers.
Walker Bat and Zach Man.
Or you just be Bruce Wayne and I'll be Dick Grayson.
Sure. Oh, that's very sweet of you. Just because I'm 3 years older than you,
yes,
I guess.
Yeah.
I got in.
And I wear tights and fight crime at night too. So.
Exactly. and my shirt has nipples on it.
Yes.
So, although the movie we're here to discuss today, pre-nipple.
Yeah, no nips.
Hold
no
on.
nips.
Okay, I'm getting way ahead of ourselves here. We are, and I'm going to just go ahead and turn this down. Hello. If you have been listening to the podcast so far, you know that this is a podcast where we discuss the music of Radiohead and its influence on our lives. We are both huge Radiohead fans, and if you have been listening so far, you've gotten all the way up through our 2-part episode of our OK Computer coverage. But we wanted to do something a little bit different for this episode. Zach and I have known for a while we were going to do this, and it was just a matter of when. We thought we would take an episode where we take a break from Radiohead, because even as much as we love Radiohead, I think it's like that's how you continue to love Radiohead, right? Is knowing when to... Yeah. This is like we're having a little bit of an affair on Radiohead right now, and we're having a little affair with a certain Playboy billionaire who has nothing to do with Batman, as far as I know at this point.
No.
Playboy billionaire Bruce Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
A bit of a layabout, bit of a rapscallion, bit of a scoundrel. But we thought we would discuss the 1989 film Batman, directed by Tim Burton. And Zach, why are we doing this? Why are we talking about the 1989 Batman? Aside from the fact that just we want to.
I think it's sort of undersung as far as Batman movies for sure, and just movies. Like, I think that it would be silly for us to do a deviation on The Shining, because we may have lots of thoughts on it, and even some of our listeners might seem new, but I think I would have a hard time thinking of anything new that I hadn't heard before. And I am a huge fan of Batman, the character in the comics. I'm a huge fan of some of the movies. And I think you suggested it. I mean, I've wanted to do the episode since you suggested it. And I think you said it as a joke, or I interpreted it that way, but it wasn't a joke. And
the joke has now gone too far, and we are committed to talking about this movie. That's true. And I will say, I think we are equal Radiohead fans. I would say. But I think I am also a big fan of Batman. I'm a big fan of the Batman movies. I've seen this movie dozens of times, although this is the first time in easily a decade that I've seen it.
Wow.
I would say a little more than that, probably closer to 15 years. But I think that, and I've read a lot of Batman comics. On the table in front of us is Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns and Alan Moore's The Killing Joke. Read both of those. Checked in and out with the DC universe periodically. We'll pick up different kind of... I think I've read some of the more famous collected Batman stories over the years. But I would say you are the bigger Batman fan, and I would say specifically the reason we're doing this is because... And Zach is much better at dates and lengths of time for me. I'm going to say that for a summer, at least, Zach, when we were kids, watched our household VHS copy of this movie I'm not exaggerating, on a daily basis, listeners.
No, he's not at all. That's
And
very
so
true.
that was, I think that was really what it came from for me is, and I'm sure we will hit upon some new things to be said about, surely just by us discussing Batman, some things are going to be said about him that have not been said before.
Uh-huh.
But really, it was kind of like, well, if me and Zach are doing a podcast about our strongest shared interests and kind of the inside jokes of our life and upbringing as discussed through the lens of Radiohead, we got to talk about 1989 Batman.
Absolutely.
Because this was a big, big part of our childhoods, mine through Zach's directly through eyeball injection on a daily basis. So, Zach, what is your history with this movie? Why did you watch it every day? How long would you say you did that for? How many times would you estimate you've seen this movie?
I would say like it's easy to say like, oh, I've seen that movie 100 times when people really mean 17, right? I've probably seen Dumb and Dumber 25 times.
Sure.
Like, literally, if not more. I have probably seen Batman 1989 100 times. Yesterday and the night before that being the perfect 100th. I had 99. I was waiting for the perfect.
That's
moment.
why we did it. We needed to hit
Yes,
Zach's
exactly.
100th watch and then record a podcast about it.
I don't know. I think it was just like limited media. Like I really do value the time that I was born, and I think that, I don't know, a lot of people that are alive.
You were born in 1989.
I was born in 1989, about a month after this movie was
the
released.
year Batman was born.
The year, well, yeah, the year he was born to the big screen, kind of, because we did have 66. But I don't know what drove compulsive watching of this, other than that you and I both were huge comic book fans, and there was not an abundance of even comic media outside of comic books to choose from. So I think that was part of it. And I do think, I was thinking about this a lot, and I don't know if it's like retrospective romanticization, but I do think viscerally this appealed to me for a number of reasons I do want to wait to get in on. I didn't know it at the time at all, but I think it really shaped my taste in a lot of ways. And it could be the best version of me obsessively watching something that's not the greatest film of all time. I'll at least admit that much.
An early opinion reveal.
It's just not Citizen Kane. That's all I'm saying. It's the movie below that.
It's the second. You beat me to it. Yeah, it's not Citizen Kane. It's the second best American film.
Goes Citizen Kane, Batman, Casablanca.
Yeah. Then 2001. Then
yes.
Batman Returns. Then, surprisingly, Batman Forever follows Batman Returns. It is the fourth best film of all time.
Yeah, well, then Batman and Robin below that, and so on and so forth, folks. I don't know what drove me to do that, because the whole romanticizing I was doing of it shaping my taste. I also did that with The Perfect Storm to a lesser degree.
Oh, that's funny.
The 2000 film starring George Clooney, Mark Wahlberg, and others.
Right, where he says, "I always find the fish, always." And I will this time. So don't fuck with me. That's the only part I remember. I didn't know you compulsively watched that movie. But now that you're mentioning it, I've seen it a lot.
But
so
The
that
Perfect
must be
Storm
through
was
you.
probably for a summer. Batman was for a year.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know, but I've seen it in more than any other movie I've ever watched.
I was thinking about that for me too, because if you've seen it 100 times, let's say conservatively that I've seen it 50 times.
Mm-hmm.
And it also is like a question of, because I just, like I said, I just have this mental picture of you in our living room at the Colfax Highway house, and just Batman, like the sun beating through the windows and Batman being on. And so like I probably was in and out during a lot of that, but I would say cumulatively I've probably seen it 50 times. And when I was watching it this time, I was like, is this the movie I've seen the most? And if so, what a bizarre thing, because it's not in my top 10.
No, yeah, totally.
I'll say that right now. And I'm like, yeah, it's probably this, and it's probably the original Star Wars trilogy, are probably the movies I've watched the most times. Dumb and Dumber would also
Quick
be up
deviation
there.
question.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Which Star Wars film have you seen the most?
Probably Empire.
Okay, all right. Just
Because if I ever just want to watch one,
yes,
I usually throw
Phantom
in
Menace.
Empire.
Oh, Empire, right, of course.
Although, maybe not, though, because Jedi was my favorite as a kid.
Uh-huh.
I really slept on how much I love A New Hope until adulthood. I certainly watched it a lot as a kid, but I think it is the kind of quietest and the slowest of the Star Wars movies, and it just, by the time Return to Jedi... Return to Jedi. It sounds like a erotic thriller. We'll always have Jedi. By the time they were on Return of the Jedi, I feel like they were playing to what a juggernaut for kids Star Wars was, and as much as I like to be cool and talk shit about Ewoks now, I think that stuff was a real big draw for me. So I've probably maybe seen that one the most.
Okay.
In any case, that's kind of that's the seed of why we wanted to talk about this. It's just like a huge part of our childhood. But this is also, I think, listeners, about turning the spotlight on my co-host here and wanting you to psychoanalyze what is the mind of a man who has watched this movie 100 times. Do you think it's alarming for our listeners to find out they have been listening to the ravings of somebody who would watch this movie so many times?
I think it'll explain a lot because I'm a bit of a joker, I'm a bit of a kidder. I'm a bit of a duelist. I'm a bit duplicitous.
And I'm a bit of a Vicky Vale. So that really explains some of the push-pull dynamic going on.
Well, does it explain the time that we went out on one date and I got you drunk and marched you upstairs? Oh, no, sorry.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the lack of enthusiastic consent in this movie.
Hey, one drink and I'm flying, so I'm sorry.
Well, I think that kind of sets
that's
the table,
our history.
right?
I've watched it a lot. And I love Batman.
Took 20 minutes to say that. Well, before we kind of get into our thoughts and feelings about this movie, let me ask you this, because I already said this was the first time since, I'm going to say, 2008 or 9 that I'd seen this movie.
Classic 2008.
I mean, God, Obama was elected, and I was just like, I need to put on...
it was after he was elected. So it's November
that
or December.
night, I was just like, there's only one way to keep riding this high. I need to watch 1989
Harvey
Batman.
Dent. Political position of power. I see what's going on here.
Yes, a prominent black politician. And you know what? I mean, look, I don't like to get political here, but I think Obama was a bit of a two-face as well. Some of the things he was saying when he was on the campaign trail versus some of the things he did.
Yeah. And I think Bush was a bit of a Mayor Borg himself, so just to keep that political thread going.
Oh, yeah, totally. A shitty old white man.
Exactly. Who's intent on a festival. But we're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. 2008. You watched it.
Yes, but when do you... prior to this watch for the podcast, when would you estimate was the last time you saw this movie? Is this a once a year joint for you now?
No, it's fallen out of... I've been so sick of Batman, anything, not comics, but the last time I read anything new Batman was the last summer I lived in the Bay Area. I rode the BART to work, folks. That's Bay Area Rapid Transit.
Yeah.
I read a lot that summer. I read Blood Meridian, and you had recommended. I believe it's Batman Earth 1, maybe.
Which kind of like retells his origin story.
Yeah, and
really cool.
And the new Batman kind of pulls a little bit from it. In that Alfred is like ex. What is it? Not what their version of the Secret Service. It escapes me.
MI6.
MI6 is yes. IMF is Impossible Mission Force. Alfred's ex MI6. So that summer, 2015, 2016, I know was the last time I watched it. And prior to that, Kevin Smith has a podcast it's now called Fat Man Beyond, but it was originally titled Fat Man on Batman. And he and his co-host Mark Bernardin, who actually just bought his graphic novel, it's called Adora Goes the Distance. I want to recommend it. They do a movie by movie commentary, and that would have been in like 2014. And if you felt like it was a lot that I'd seen it 100 times, Kevin Smith has seen this movie 300 times at least.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge fan of his, not necessarily of all his movies, but anything to do with him podcasting and certainly talking about Batman, because he loves Batman and has read every single thing. And so listening to he and Mark deconstruct it, I'm not going to pull liberally from what they said at all. I haven't listened to it in years, but was kind of eye-opening for me for some of the thematic issues with it to hear a writer talk about it. So I know that was the first time. So 2014 was the first time I watched it with adult eyes, and then the 2 years thereafter. So it had been a solid 5 to 7 years since I sat down and watched it.
Okay, great. Well, now that we've set the table here, before we get into our discussion of the movie, why don't you give us kind of some of the general facts about this film, who made it, who's in it, etc.
Well, it was released on a Friday, June 23rd, 1989.
Oh, okay. So they were like, we are fans of this. We heard there's this little band out in Oxfordshire.
Yeah.
They're calling themselves on a Friday. We feel like they got a future ahead of them. Let's, in homage to them, release our Batman movie on a Friday.
Yeah, because movies would usually come out on like Monday or Tuesday. You know?
Okay.
So it was released June 23rd. That is interesting, though, just because nowadays the superhero blockbuster comes out usually first week of May, and then maybe a July, maybe an August release. But
do you think our dad saw this in the theaters? I guess probably not, because you were just born.
No, I was a month.
You were. Mom was like 9 months pregnant with you.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean.
They did see Batman Returns in the theaters, because I remember I was not allowed to see it, but they came home and described the movie.
Wow, a very rare good movie choice for mom and dad. That movie is terrifying for a 6-year-old.
Yeah, they would not allow me to see it.
But I saw that movie very young. But we're not talking about Batman Returns today. It was directed by Tim Burton at the young age of 29.
No shit.
Which, for a production of this scale, even though superhero movies were not considered a bankable thing at this time, this is what started that, is insane. I mean, and to be directing the likes of the actors that are in this film, it's pretty impressive. Producer was John Peters. He dated actress Kim Basinger. So, he might come up a few times.
I have a reveal about somebody else who dated actor Kim Basinger as well.
Alec Baldwin? Oh, they were married.
Yes, that's my reveal. A little birdie told me she had a romance with Alec Baldwin.
Was it you?
No. Should I just say it? Should I say it?
Yeah.
I found out in my Wikipediaing of her, because I was like, what's she up to? What's she doing? I mean, probably doesn't need to be said, but drop dead fucking gorgeous in this movie. And she dated Prince.
Yeah.
Which I did not know, and was like one of his albums, full of controversy. He has an album called Controversy.
She features on it, correct?
No, but he made an album with her that never came out.
Oh, right, yeah. No, not that she was on Full of... I knew that they had recorded together. I didn't know it was unreleased.
She left L.A. to go live with him in Minneapolis, and her family was convinced that he had her under some kind of spell, and went and
Ezra Millered her, yeah.
Right. Very, good topical reference. And went and quote unquote rescued her, which I don't appreciate, because Prince, in all his legacy of what a Lothario and sex man he was, I've never heard anything about him being any kind of creep or
or a weirdo.
And so I don't like it. I don't like, I can only speculate about the details of all his relationships, but I've never heard any women say any bad things about him in terms of his sexual or relationship conduct. And so I don't like that her family made this assumption that it's like maybe she's just into him.
Well, Kim Basinger, though, at this time, and leading into 1990, was convinced to buy 89 acres, in Vermont or something, by her family, and shortly thereafter, no longer spoke to her mother or father or her 3 out of 4 siblings again. So it ended up being like, hey, I don't know what the situation, but her family convinced her to use her money to make a $1 million upon $1 million investment, and I think that it may have been something like it was going south, and Princess kidnapped her.
Okay, this is further corroboration of my feelings, which is maybe she was just into Prince, and maybe Prince was rescued.
I mean, who wasn't?
Right, and it's I think the fact that they couldn't stomach that probably is because they were all racist and
totally.
Prince was very controversial at that time.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to, I have a lot of
That was it. That was my little deviation.
but just Prince's controversy is coming up here when we get to the music. So, characters were created by, we're talking about Batman, Joker, and a few others. I'll tell you which ones are not in the comics, but created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger. Now, you will notice in
Bill Finger?
Yeah, well, he's not in the title credits, right? Characters created by Bob Kane, it says.
And also, Bill Finger sounds like a
movie title?
It sounds like a 60s Batman villain.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Yeah, because he sounds like a useless villain, which a lot of the villains were in that era.
Right. He just like his thing is like he has one long finger.
Yeah, or like the foam finger. He's like, So I do want to mention that up top to our legions of listeners, just because Bill Finger was responsible, for 50 to 75% of the character in the creation of the Batman character and all of the villains, and largely the Joker, who features prominently in this movie called Batman. So there's a Hulu documentary I do want to recommend called Batman and Bill. It came out in 2017. And basically Bob Kane was a jerk and did not establish a favorable contract as Batman was coming to prominence. And up until 2016's Batman v Superman, every Batman movie just had characters created by Bob Kane. And now in any thereafter, so the new Batman movie, and I want to say Justice League, says character created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger for Batman.
Oh, well, good.
So
well,
it's really cool.
I'm glad Finger finally got his day in the sun.
He did, yeah. So now the next thing I have is kind of the starring and order of billing. Did you want to add anything to any of that?
No, hit us with it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to say the screenplay was written by Sam Hamm and Warren Scarron. And I noticed
story by them and Tim Burton or them and someone else?
Well, Tim Burton...
There's a different story by credit. But.
Right, because they were the final rewrite from the 1986 screenplay. So Warren Scarron did the initial rewrite, and because of the writer's strike in 1988, any further subsequent rewrites had to be done by like a non-union person. So Sam Hamm did that, and it shows big time that they were writing.
So Sam Hamm is a fucking picket line crossing scab.
Well, yeah, and I think it's funny too that they're like, let's hire two guys whose names rhyme with each other, Sam Hamm and Warren Scarron. What are the odds of that?
Oh, that is funny.
Isn't that weird? Yeah. Okay, so the starring, really iconic cast.
Starring Michael Haring. Everyone in this movie was
starring Jeton Keaton. No. So Jack Nicholson, so he turned down, or I'm sorry, he adjusted his usual salary of $10 million to $6 million, which was equivalent to, I want to say, $30 million in today's dollars. So his contract stipulated that Nicholson's contract said that he was entitled to a cut of the film's earnings, and that included merchandise. And so this
Holy shit.
Yeah, so it's not actually known. Nicholson's biographer, I forget his name, but he speculated that this led to 50 to 90 million in residuals for Nicholson.
Damn.
And part of this, he demanded and received top billing on the promo materials.
I was really shocked by that watching this time in the opening credits that it says Jack Nicholson before. I won't say who plays Batman because you haven't said yet, but I was like, that's really strange.
Yeah,
for
there's a Batman
movie.
symbol on the cover.
Yeah, as you said, this movie is called Batman.
It is called Batman.
Hopefully one day they'll make a movie called Joker.
Well, let me tell you, Walker.
Do you have good news for me?
So I don't know if you read this, but they screen tested. Some of them were offered the part of Joker before they got Jack. Were Tim Curry, could have worked.
I think that could definitely work.
David Bowie.
No, bad.
I've seen David Bowie in 2 movies, Labyrinth and The Prestige, and he was one of the most talented human beings that ever walked the planet Earth, except at acting.
I can't really recall how I felt about his performance in The Prestige. I really enjoy him in Labyrinth, but I don't know if that's because it's good acting.
It's tailored to what kind of acting he could do. You know what? He was a great actor. Depends on your definition. I'm talking about scripted, non-animated dialogue.
I don't want him to play the Joker. I'll tell you that.
I'm gonna save the best for last. Brad Dourif. That could have been great. Voice of Chucky,
want that
folks.
movie.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Lord of the Rings. He's been in a lot of shit.
He plays Chucky in all the Chucky movies.
I said that.
I apologize, I didn't hear you. Oh my god!
I'm kidding.
Listeners, if you saw the look that Zach just gave me, he was furious. I gotta let him drive. This is his movie.
No. Ray Liotta. No, thank you.
No.
Ever since I was born, I wanted to be the Joker for as long as I can remember. Robin Williams.
I could see it.
Yes. And he, I'm wondering if Robin Williams was a big dick because there's stories of him getting fucked by the studio like way too much, like Disney. I mean, the Disney one sounds like they did legit screw him over, but like there's quite a few Robin Williams lore stories who RIP. I don't think he was a dick. I'm joking. But
I was going to say people don't like to speak ill of the dead, but people usually go to great lengths to say the opposite.
Absolutely. He has an interesting past of, getting embroiled in like legal battles with major studios, but yeah, I revoke that. Robin Williams, great man, great comedian. So the best for last, offered the part, turned it down, greatly regretted it because he was a very rude young man at the time.
Oh,
John Lithgow. Pardon the terrible impression. Tim Burton was like begging him to take it. He screen tested, and he turned it down. And I mean,
I see him more as a Riddler.
I see him as being awful as the Joker.
I don't see that. Yeah, great actor and can be very creepy.
Yes, yeah, he can. He is legit creepy in that season of Dexter, actually.
I don't think he has the right level of whimsy for the Joker.
No, and I don't know. Yeah, so he didn't play the Joker is the point.
I'm sorry, why do I think, I thought there was something about Brando doing it, or was Brando already like obese and retired at this point?
Yeah, I think the next Brando movie would have been it has Matthew Broderick in it. It's
Ferris Bueller.
Yes, in 1986. No, Brando was definitely like they had to like do camera trickery and earpieces to get him to not look morbidly obese and remember any fucking lines.
Right. Okay.
So
I don't know where okay, well, whatever. I made that up.
Well, I know. I mean, you know, like every actor of that era, Nicholson was pals with Brando and is a huge Brando lover. But so yeah, Jack got the part. Amazing contract, in my opinion. Earned every penny of it. Second billing, playing the title character, was a young comedic actor. He was actually a stand-up comic at one time named Michael Keaton. Mm-hmm. This casting was, I think, released in like summer of 88, a full year in advance. Heavily critiqued by fans, prompting 50,000 protest letters to Warner Brothers.
That is so silly.
Very early fan toxicity.
Can I jump in on that too?
Yeah, absolutely.
To me, this also starts what will be a tradition of no matter who is cast as Batman, there will be an uproar.
Yes,
from fans of the franchise or fans of the comic book or just fans in general. Every single person who has been cast as Batman in my lifetime, there is a chorus of, that guy can't be. And, you know, I think some Batmans have been better than others. But I also think that the part of Batman is amorphous enough that I honestly think really any capable actor could.
Yeah. I mean, I could see it. I think it's funny just to reconcile it with today with no Twitter. I mean, 50,000 letters.
That's really
like
funny.
Imagine the hatred you'd have to feel to sit down and write a letter today, not type it. You know?
Yeah. And not many people feel Keaton is the best Batman.
Yeah, and I think when you take a gander at who was strongly considered or sought after, I think it was absolutely the right choice in this case.
Oh yeah,
for an abundance of reasons. Mel Gibson, Kevin Costner.
That would have been a Batman with some different opinions.
Yes.
It's like he can't catch the Joker because the whole time he's just like, Jews are poisoning the city. Everyone's going, I think it's the Joker. He's like, I'm positive it's not. Yes. This is a Semitic. This goes all the way to Israel.
His bat rings have like SS markings on them. Okay.
It would have really leaned into the fascistic elements of Batman.
Absolutely, yes. Of which are, buried so far I've never noticed them. Tom Selleck, a bit old, obviously, and too as well. But I could
the
see
mustache is sticking out under the mouth of the.
Well, wait
costume.
until you hear what would stick out with this actor, Harrison Ford. They really wanted it, and it's like
I don't hate that.
I don't hate it either. But he has one of the most recognizable chins in the world, let alone like in Gotham.
I mean, you can't pull at that thread too. You can tell it's Michael Keaton under that mask too.
Sure. That's always part of the. I mean, you can really tell it's Val Kilmer with his lips and that mole. But I think Michael Keaton does a really good job. Like, we'll get into this, but I think everyone loves to make fun of the Christian Bale Batman voice, but he has a Batman voice and a Batman face. Which I just want to say, like, I think Michael Keaton, I could see the revolt since Beetlejuice was the movie before this he did. He showed he can act in the Sober movie. I think it's called Getting Sober. I've seen it. But largely a comedic actor, so I could understand people being like, wanting a Mel Gibson or a Tom Selleck, which would not make sense and would age awful.
Yeah.
They chose they chose Michael Keaton, but Charlie Sheen was neck and neck. And Charlie Sheen is a nightmare, but at the time, I could kind of see.
Sure.
They don't even look
short.
that different from a little short, a little druggy, a little
yeah, but I could see him as a Bruce Wayne.
I could too. And he can act too. I mean, Charlie Sheen hasn't acted well in many years, but
That's
he can.
so funny though, dude. With Charlie Sheen, Tom Selleck, Mel Gibson, three of the most notoriously horrible, bigoted people in Hollywood.
Oh, is Tom Selleck a bigot?
Well, I don't know. I
know
guess
he's right of center.
He's a Republican. So
yeah, he is.
That doesn't affect. That doesn't reflect
stole
the
a bunch
views
of
the
water.
podcast, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, he was just too old as well, too. But that is a theme that we'll kind of see after we go past a few more names. Is age was not a factor when selecting the actors because longevity was not a consideration. That's another thing that differentiates this movie.
Sure, yeah.
So quickly, we'll go through these a lot faster. But Kim Basinger plays the role of Vicky Vale. She is also a character in the comics, featured in issue 57, I want to say. Fun factoid, Sean Young was cast and shooting for this movie. She broke her shoulder preparing for a horseback riding scene that was going to be in the movie.
Oh.
And replaced by by Kim Basinger. You know Sean Young? I can tell you. Blade Runner, she plays Rachel. She's in Ace Ventura Pet Detective as the...
Okay. Sure. I've seen her around.
Yeah. Her career, this really damaged her career. It's a bummer because she was so excited to play Vicky Vale, unlike Kim Basinger, who found out a week before. Who's probably excited, but not really like a fan of the comics.
Was she already a big deal? Had she already done 9.5 weeks?
Yes, she was coming up.
Okay.
And she'd been on a hit and miss run, but she was a very big deal as far as a model and actress.
I think she's quite good in this movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not a lot to that part, but she's good.
Yeah. So Sean Young was so excited and so sad that she couldn't be in this movie that when Batman Returns was announced, she showed up to John Peters' office, the producer of the film, dressed as Catwoman to say, "I'm in for this next one, baby." And that just sounds so sad to me.
Oh,
just
that's very actory.
I know. Like she's like, and he's like, "Oh, okay."
Oh,
no.
wow, that's a really embarrassing actor story.
I know, it's the worst. Robert Wool plays the character of Alexander Knox, not in the comics, thank God. I think Warner Brothers had high hopes for this stupid fucking character because of Burke, played by Paul Reiser in Aliens.
Oh, okay.
I mean, granted, every male in this film has the Burke
haircut.
haircut.
Why don't you say what he serves in this movie?
So Robert Wool was a comedian. He had a couple HBO specials. I've never watched his comedy, but he is meant to be the comedic relief.
Yeah.
And
he's the reporter who's the only one who believes there is a Batman. He's considered a joke at the paper.
Yeah. He's considered a joke, a fringe writer. And yeah, it's a theme of the 80s that a comedic actor, and maybe it persisted after that, will play in the case of Paul Reiser in Aliens, a totally non-comedic role. But they wanted him to bring a little pizzazz to this, and I do not think to any great effect.
No, it doesn't fit well for me.
We talked about Harvey Dent, Billy D. Williams. This. I'm trying. Harvey Dent, so like I said before, not concerned with age of the character. And listen, Billy D is Billy D. He was still Billy D. Put on a few Billy Ds since he played Lando. But I mean,
few Billy LBs.
Exactly. Thank you. I didn't need it for that one. But does a good job, and a lot of his screen time was cut. But they were developing the character Harvey Dent. Folks plays Two-Face in the comics. So this was meant to be kind of building up to that. We're almost done with the with the cast. Pat Hingle plays Commissioner Gordon.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it. Michael Gough plays Alfred Pennyworth. Alfred, aka the worst butler, which we will also talk about. Jack Palance plays Carl Grisham. He's sort of for those of you that have maybe only seen the newer one, he would be the Carmine Falcone, sort of just the Vito Corleone of the city. He runs everything.
Crime boss runs the underworld of Gotham.
Thank you.
When you were mentioning names for the Joker, what was one of the older gentlemen you mentioned? Sorry.
Goodness. No worries. They were all around the same age. Tim Curry, David Bowie, John Lithgow, Brad Dourif, Ray Liotta, Robin Williams.
Oh, Ray Liotta, I was thinking would fit in that Jack Palance part.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be different, but he was young and good looking at this time.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good call. Pardon me, William. It's spelled Hootkins, but I think it's Hotkins. Played Lieutenant Max Eckhart, also not in the comics. I should say Carl Grisham is not in the comics either. Tracy Walter plays Bob the Goon, or just Bob as Joker refers to him. But in all the credits on the toy that he had made after him, he was called Bob the Goon. He had acted with Nicholson in 9 films. They're very good friends, which explains his casting.
Did not know that.
But he's wonderful in this movie. I love Bob. Yeah. One of the many characters obsessed with photography, like all the characters seem to be in this film.
Really raising some questions that I have about this movie. I'm excited to get into it.
We're almost there. So Jerry Hall plays Alicia Hunt, or Sugar Bumps, as Carl Grisham calls her. But she's really sort of the catalyst to drive Jack Nicholson's character is named also Jack, into insanity, as women do in all movies made in this era, and also in the Fast and Furious movies.
Yeah. This movie is not very generous to its female characters.
Yeah. No, So, nor
will this podcast be.
So she was Alicia Hunt, played by Jerry Hall, is the long-term partner of Mick Jagger. She's the mother of his 4 children, and was married to Rupert Murdoch from 2016 to 2022.
Cool.
So she gets around with some rich men, rich herself too.
Well, that's gross.
To go from Mick Jagger to a fat rapist is awful. And the last but not least, we can't forget that the Monarch Theater and Axis Chemical are sort of like the way New York can be like a character in itself. Those locations are in the movie so much that I would consider them characters themselves.
Okay.
And
they are both playing themselves. Murdoch. What was the chemical? Axis Chemical, played by Axis Chemical.
Yeah, I mean, New York movies are typically shot in New York, so and I'm really excited to talk about these things, and I really would love you to get in more too. I know it's kind of going hard there, but
no, I appreciate it.
Score is done by Danny Elfman. It's interesting because Danny Elfman is so sort of in our consciousness now because of Hollywood, and maybe for super fans out there of like new wave music, Oingo Boingo, but he was relatively new at this point, so he was the front man of band Oingo Boingo.
He was already Tim Burton's guy.
Yes, because of Beetlejuice, but like that movie's budget and just sort of everything pales in comparison to this. He had not done the Simpsons score yet. Mm-hmm. So that was sort of his big break. John Peters, the producer, was really skeptical of his hiring, and credit to Tim Burton here, push for it. And so much so that like John Peters wanted Michael Jackson and Prince to do all of the score as well. And Elfman played him his Batman theme just from the opening title crawl. And like it's one of those dramatic stories like John Peters like fainted, with amazement.
Right. They should do like one of those like rock and roll biopics, but about Danny Elfman. And there's
he's still alive. Yeah. He plays himself.
Yeah, there's the scene where he finds his voice, and it's like, if you had to play one Batman score before you left this earth,
So I mean, even at the time, it was widely acclaimed as the highlight of the movie. Certainly, in retrospect, I think that's one of the things that critics and people in this podcast will probably see as one of the highlights.
Really holds up.
Yeah,
it's an amazing score, and I would say, if I can tilt my hand at a little opinion that I have, I would say it's kind of one of the few things that gives this movie an atmosphere.
100%.
Is something that I found to be lacking when I watched it.
Atmosphere. So I said Peters wanted Prince and Michael Jackson to do the score, kind of as a brilliant.
Prince wouldn't do that. Prince wouldn't do a score with Michael Jackson.
No, but it's interesting though, because Prince is more of the musical technical composer than Michael Jackson is. Michael Jackson was an amazing singer, famously not a musician. And so I could kind of see, just due to, the fact that it was 1989. And we'll talk about this more in the Prince part, but some of the Prince songs sound like Michael Jackson in a way that most Prince songs don't, I would say.
Well, Prince was very intentional with how he would present his music when it had a more mainstream audience in mind.
Yeah.
And even would
He's very much a one for them, one for me.
Totally. And he even would do versions of the same song with a white audience in mind and a black audience in mind. He would do different versions.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, the jump from his first 4 or 5 albums to Purple Rain, he's specifically highlighting certain aspects of his music and downplaying other ones in order to have, he was already really big, but to have more mainstream radio appeal at that point.
Well, that's
just to say, it's like he could turn the valves on what he was doing.
Well, that tracks. I didn't know that to that level of, but yeah, I mean, Prince, one of the most amazing virtuosos of all time. And we'll come to his involvement in a second, but Elfman combined the style of both Prince and Michael Jackson in his score as sort of a very sophisticated fuck you to John Peters, I think.
Interesting.
Because, Danny Elfman is just a fantastic composer, is what it comes down to. He was bummed about the final mixing, which was done in England, but he still says he was pleased with it overall to this day. And, Walker tipped his hand. I'll say it's one of the most influential scores I think ever written. It's led to Danny Elfman with a long-standing partnership with a lot of Tim Burton movies, although they did have a falling out in the early 90s, but, have come back together. Sam Raimi, and in a way that it's influential. Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3, the Sam Raimi versions, Danny Elfman scores those movies. And while I think this score is superior just in its composition, the mixing, it's only barely superior, and the mixing on those movies is perfect. So
Danny Elfman is somebody who
Gus Van Sant as well.
I'm a huge fan of his iconic scores. But he's somebody that has become so big now that sometimes I'll see movies where it's a Danny Elfman score and it doesn't have that Danny Elfman-ness anymore. It's he's like a little bit kind of like John Williams, where it's like, I think maybe he's been so influential that he's lost a little bit of his distinction.
Totally.
But these early ones, Beetlejuice and Batman and the Simpsons theme and obviously all the music on Nightmare Before Christmas, he's just an incredible talent and really one of a kind.
Absolutely. So that was the original score. The soundtrack is done by Prince. It's his 11th studio album with 11 tracks. Released not on a Friday. It was released on June 20th, 1989. And Prince's involvement was largely to leverage Warner Brothers' contract-bound talent agreement with that artist. And also because they had that contract with him, they really wanted to revive his popularity, which both Batman and Prince's was waning at that time. And to great effect, because the result was another multi-platinum cross-media enterprise between Warner Brothers, similar in the vein of Purple Rain, which was like a collaboration where they made all the money in both sides of their studios.
Man, smart. Cynical, but smart.
I mean, and I don't know if what are your thoughts on Prince's songs?
I gotta be honest with you. You told before we recorded, you know that I'm a massive Prince fan. I'm not really that familiar with this Batman album. I mean, the songs that are in, I think there's 2 songs in the movie.
3
songs in the movie,
but 2 of them stand out.
And I know Tim Burton asked him to do an original song for the movie, and then Prince just basically turned in an album, which I love.
Right.
And so it was basically, like you said, it was kind of this like it was this additional product that doesn't have a ton to do with the movie.
Right. Well, to the extent too that Prince was insulted that the director of a Batman movie who's asking him to do it asked him to craft songs about the characters.
Mm-hmm.
So much so this just shows you how much Prince thinks of himself, which is an element I love of him. But like the scene where one of my favorite song of his in the movie plays in the museum, the lyrics are black and white, red and yellow. They craft the movie around the song,
right?
Not the other way around. So it's just amazing.
And there definitely is some they're kind of
thematically they're
making Joker kind of the Prince of the movie.
Yes,
but it's
Crown Prince of Crime.
Exactly, but it is. It is a tenuous connection though.
Yes,
even though these songs are in it.
Yeah. And Batman it tends to be not really anymore, but at this time Batman was thought of for kids. Maybe this movie is the first one to flip it on its head. But there is a line in his second song where it says, "Sex, it's not that kind of party." And you think what would a parent be thinking that brought their 7-year-old to this movie? For the movie itself, and then if you listen to the lyrics, it's not a movie for kids.
No, it sure isn't. Any other credits that you want to mention?
No, that is it. Thank you for letting me go hard there. I want to turn it over to you because I'm exhausted. Okay. And tell the listeners what the plot of this movie is, Walker.
Okay, the plot of this movie, as I understand it, I find the story of this movie to be somewhat incomprehensible.
Mm-hmm.
This is what was interesting to me about watching it this time is this movie had just happened to me so many times that I feel like this was the first time I watched it questioningly at all. Because even the last time I watched it as an adult, I remember it was in the same way I watched Star Wars, which is just, I love this, it's good, I'm putting it on. And I don't think I've ever watched this movie with a critical eye until this watch of it.
Totally.
But I don't really know what is going on here, but I will do my best. Okay, so the plot, as I understand it, is that it's Gotham City. Crime is in a very, I'll try to limit the social commentary, but in a very post-Reagan 80s movie kind of way. It's very scary in cities. Cities are bad and scary. And Gotham City is no exception. It's
it's like New York of its time, but on speed.
Right. It's before, what was it, Koch or Giuliani that were let's get the porn theaters out of Times Square?
That was Giuliani with the broken window theory.
All right, there you go. Before the wonderful man, Rudy Giuliani, fixed New York, it's very much like that. It's dark and scary, and there's scary people everywhere. The movie opens with us seeing these two criminals who, for some reason, have open lesions all over their face.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be funny here. I don't know if that was
no, it looks
weird
like they have
HIV or
cold
AIDS.
Sores. I hadn't thought of that, but no, I don't think you're being. It does look like they're suffering from some sort of disease.
I guess it's also just the Tim Burton of it all, of just let's make everything gothy and dark and weird and gross. But
yes.
So,
but they're disgusting.
Yeah,
they look like
everyone's
Beetlejuice.
gross in Gotham City, and Gotham City is gross. There's trash everywhere. There's criminals everywhere. Batman is a relatively new thing on the scene. Not everybody thinks he's real. The cops and politicians refuse to acknowledge that he's out there. If he is real, he's wanted and he's at large because he's a vigilante.
Yeah. There have been rumblings in the crime world, but those seem to be the only ones that, we'll get.
Right. Rumblings that a bat. Right. Not a Batman, but rumblings that there is some sort of actual bat going around. So criminals indeed are a cowardly and superstitious lot because they literally believe that there's some sort of bat flying around.
Well, 50% of them. The bat, because the other guy doesn't. believe it. So,
right.
Of the two criminals.
This is the opening of the movie as we start with these two sore-covered criminals, both dying of leprosy in the streets of Gotham, and they're arguing about if there's a Batman or not. Much like you and your criminal buddy, you might be on different sides of like the efficacy of the COVID-19 vaccine today. The hot issue of the day in Gotham 1989
whether it exists
is there's a Batman. And so
yeah, he's in like year one, like you were saying.
Yeah, it's early Batman. He's still figuring it out. Gotham is approaching its bicentennial, and Harvey Dent, the district attorney of Gotham, the new tough on crime district attorney, is wanting to postpone the bicentennial celebration because of the crime rash that's happening. But the mayor of Gotham, who very much like the mayor of Jaws, is insisting that we have to have this celebration. I believe
we're going to have this festival one way or the other. He's so into the festival.
Yes.
You have this festival and businesses will come back.
Did you think
because of a festival?
Well, did you think about Jaws? Because I was like, this is Mayor Larry Vaughn from Jaws. Like, there's shark attacks happening all over the city, and he's just like, we've got to keep the beaches open.
No, but I mean, you're 100% right. Yeah.
Yeah. So a very stock character of like stupid bureaucrat who doesn't know what's going on and won't adapt.
And he looks like Ed Koch.
Oh,
like,
okay.
Like just like him.
Yeah, he's hot. And so the bicentennial is approaching. Some stupid libs want to stop it because of all the crime, but the fucking mayor wants to keep it going. And meanwhile, we meet Jack Palance's character, the mob boss who's controlling the entire criminal element of the city. His right-hand man is a young man of 57 years old, Jack Napier, played by Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson's character, Jack Napier, is...
He's not... So he doesn't start as the Joker, essentially.
He's not the Joker, but he's the right-hand man of this crime boss. It hints that he's the one kind of actually running the show. He is cucking the crime boss, stepping out with his girlfriend. They're having a secret affair. There is a baffling and impossible to understand crime that the crime boss wants to commit, where they go to a chemical factory to steal files. I, for the life of me, could not understand what the purpose of this crime is or what they're there to do. But the purpose it serves in the movie is that it's a double cross because Jack Palance knows everyone in this movie is named Jack. Jack Palance knows that Jack Nicholson is stepping out with his woman, and it's actually a setup. The corrupt cops are there, and it's all for him to get killed in the line of fire when they're busted in on by the cops. But what actually happens is Batman busts in, tries to save Jack Napier as he's hanging over a vat of chemicals, but he falls in and becomes the Joker. And then the rest of the movie is, I'm going to say, is a completely open question what anyone wants or why anyone is doing what they're doing.
It's a lot of Joker doing stuff.
The Joker does stuff, and he unleashes a wave of terror on Gotham City, but I, for the life of me, do not understand what his motivation is. And I know that that has become a thing about the Joker, is that he has no motivation. He's just into chaos. But that is not explored to me in this movie. That's something that we have applied to the Joker later, or may have been more thoroughly explored in the comic books. But in this, it's very, very unclear. There's elements of like class war. There's elements of chaotic terrorism. There's the whole artist angle, which is introduced not at all until the midpoint of the movie. Suddenly the Joker's thing is that he wants to be seen as an artist. But the rest of the movie is the Joker doing stuff and Batman trying to catch him.
And gradually the Joker states that he wants to have a toe-to-toe. And it is buried in there. I think the motivations is... I agree with everything you just said, but... So yeah, it does gradually build to a confrontation between the two of them. But you are right. Everything leading up to that and that mid chunk is just vignettes of mostly the Joker doing stuff.
Yes, and I think that the connective tissue of what he's doing and how it connects him to Batman is really, really missing, in my opinion, because the first time he's talking about Batman to Vicky Vale and about how she says, "What do you want? Little song, little dance, Batman's head on a lance." I don't know if you realize this. You probably have because you've seen this movie 500 times. Batman has not foiled a single one of his things at that point. Batman has not intervened on.
But what has he done? He's responsible for having dumped him in the vat of chemicals. That's why he. I'm not. I'm not explaining it like the movie's well written. I'm explaining it like it. I completely agree. You should not have to watch a movie 100 times to understand why the villain and the hero want to fight. And at this point, only the villain wants to fight him. Batman's sort of like, I don't know. I'm watching other crimes.
Yeah, I'm busy beating up muggers.
Right. I'm busy watching muggers commit the crime and then educating them to tell their friends or do me favors.
Yeah, clean up your act.
Yeah. But that's the
Get
first...
off welfare, you bum. Yeah. You fucking hippies.
So, yeah, you're still going through the plot.
No, but you're right. No. I mean, I'm about to wrap it up because I don't want to go through beat by beat because I think we'll talk about these things a little more in depth. But you are right. Okay, his motivation is that Batman dropped him in the vat of chemicals. But this is another area where I feel the script very much fails because Joker doesn't express any regret about what has happened to him to turn him into the Joker up to that point. He's loving it.
He seems to have embraced it through a psychotic break.
Yeah, he even says when we first see him as the Joker, as you can see, I'm a whole lot happier. Now, I understand that this is a crazy man, but it just, I forgot that he has a revenge-based motivation because I don't think that is maintained at all. And there is the line also where Joker does something and then all the news coverage is about Batman, and he makes what I think is one of the funnier jokes in the movie, which is Jack Nicholson is watching Batman on TV. He punches the TV with a giant extendable boxing glove and then says, "Can somebody tell me what kind of a world we live in where a man dressed up as a bat gets all of my press?" So there is this element, too, of like the Joker is he's a performer. He's an attention hog. And
he's an artist.
Yeah. But this is all a very long way of saying I don't think that the movie does a good job of connecting Batman and Joker until the third act, which I will get to now because I don't want to go through beat by beat. So the Joker does stuff. Batman is being the detective, trying to figure out how he's doing what he's doing, who he is, how he can stop him. Meanwhile, Batman, a.k.a. Bruce Wayne, is engaged in a very
dalliance,
kind of some sort of affair with Vicky Vale, and for some reason is wrestling with if he should tell her if he's Batman because they fucked one time, and ultimately Batman
Alfred wants him to marry her because
it's
of
very
one
weird
date.
They have a one-night stand that honestly seems to break both the brains of Bruce Wayne and Vicky Vale, like
and Alfred
most of all.
There seems to be a certain weightlessness in the air when she's here. He's like, she's been here one time.
Yeah, and I'm also just like, is this the first woman Bruce has ever brought home? Like, what is going on with Alfred? But in any case, Batman figures out that Joker is Jack Napier, and that Jack Napier is the man who killed his parents in front of him in Crime Alley. They have a final showdown with each other. Batman wins. Joker dies. He's dating Vicky Vale. The end.
Yeah, well, she's getting a ride somewhere with Alfred. We don't actually know that they're dating.
Well, he says, Master Bruce said to tell you he'll be a bit late.
He also said I could do his part for the night. So, she gets into a giant Rolls Royce with Alfred, and Batman is standing looking at the bat symbol, not going to it to solve the crime. He does a lot of standing and watching around in this movie.
Literally at the end says, Master Bruce said to tell you he'll be a bit late, and then it cuts to him just standing there. So it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't hang out with this insanely hot woman. I have brooding to do.
Yes, it is true. The final shot of the movie is a statue with a cape around it. And it's actually, we're going to talk a lot about everything that is funny, But
I like that we keep saying we're gonna talk about things that we already are talking about.
well,
nonstop.
it's hilarious. It takes like, you just have to look at it closely, and you could tell it's just a statue, a miniature with a cape wrapped around it, because it's a static shot and it's an expressionless man.
I've got to tell you, I didn't notice that, but do you know what I did notice is how many Michael Keaton does not do one stunt in this movie.
When the sword fight scene, especially,
there are so many long shots where the Batman costume is being worn by a man who looks nothing like Michael
Interesting.
Keaton.
I only know the whole scene, the chase around the Monarch Theater leading to the punchy fight, where I noticed it.
Maybe that's the main one that I'm thinking of, but there were multiple shots. After that, I started noticing anytime he jumps, falls, anything, it's like Michael Keaton, maybe it was an insurance issue, maybe he's just not physically up to it, but in a world where Tom Cruise is like, let me get on the plane or whatever, I was like, why can't Michael Keaton like do a kick?
Yeah.
We
have like Hayden Christensen in the Darth Vader. Oh wait, Hayden Christensen and 7 other actors playing Darth Vader. But yeah, no, his body double. It's not super. It's in the style of T2, where if you look at the shot of the bike being jumped off the freeway overpass, it's a guy who looks nothing like Arnold.
Completely different guy. and in this case, in that case, it's somebody who's much less buff than Arnold. In this case, it's somebody who's much beefier than Michael Keaton in the stunt doubles. But listen, that's my summation of the movie. How did I do?
Oh, I think you nailed it. I mean, I think this movie is difficult to summarize from a plot perspective.
It meanders, man.
It meanders, and I do think that it's like the problems that you can maybe kind of, like you were saying, with open eyes or whatnot, identify, if you know just like a little bit of the trivia, is that or not even trivia, just facts about it, is that like it, had been rewritten, and then it had to be written and rewritten as they were shooting. So that can be a miracle, like in like 2001, which was, or pretty much all of Stanley Kubrick's movies were being written and rewritten. I've never heard of it working in any other movies ever, and it certainly shows, because like the main thing that you can kind of tell with the plot is it's a sign of a poorly written movie, not poorly acted, when characters do things as if they know the ends to me, right? Like, so characters and actions can drive a plot. That's fine. But if their actions are only done to get them to a location as if they know that's where they're supposed to go, when there's 1,000 other choices that anyone would make, that is sort of like kind of pokes holes in the logic and pokes holes in the plot. And it is just vignettes of the Joker. Some of them are brilliant. Vignettes of Batman. Some of them are great. Vignettes of Bruce Wayne and Vicky Vale, and some of those are okay. But it's not... And also, like, I think a lot of it was chopped in editing. I think that's why the best bits are on screen but don't necessarily connect to one another.
I think that's really well said, because I gotta say, I think the storytelling in this movie is very poor. Here's what I like. The cast. Nicholson is great. Michael Keaton is great. Kim Basinger, I thought, did a really good job. I don't like Robert Wool. He's very annoying. But like, your main three, your triangle there of the three main characters, I think are all very charismatic, funny when they need to be funny, serious when they need to be serious. But I don't think that the things they are saying make a lot of sense a lot of the time. And it does feel like it got rewritten and stuff was left in. Like, you have the movie more memorized than I do, so you can... There's a scene where... it's like the second scene in the movie. So Batman has put the fear of God into these sore-covered criminals. And then the cops are there cleaning up the scene, right? This corrupt cop, Eckhart, who, like these other guys, like, you can tell Tim Burton is just like, I want everyone to be gross and disgusting.
He is very gross.
He's a very gross dude. He's like, just
in Star Wars and Raiders too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Who is he?
He's one of the pilots in Star Wars: A New Hope, and then in Raiders, I forget who he is, but
he's just like a cigar chomping, like 400-pound dude who like talks like this, and like he's like human phlegm, and
he's so gross.
They're cleaning up this crime scene, and he has a meeting because the cops are corrupt. He has a meeting with Jack Nicholson, which takes place, I don't know if you noticed, around the corner.
Around the
from
corner,
the crime scene that
Yeah,
they're
but
cleaning up.
Jack Napier is tilting his head down in a very like 1920s gangster wide-brimmed hat to shield his identity. Bob is polishing the vehicle.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Bob, we mentioned Bob the Goon. Bob is Jack Napier / the Joker's henchman.
Yes. Who's just with him in every scene. He's like his sycophant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, we'll follow him to the ends of the earth. And does. Yeah, no, that cracked me up where it's like they're cleaning up this crime scene and it's like, all right, I'm going to go over here and do some corruption. And he walks over.
Right.
And then can you tell me some of the things they say? Because to me, I wrote down Eckhart and
you want me to
Jack.
just do the scene? No, I'm kidding.
Well, I said they're both saying quips that don't relate to each other in any way.
I don't agree necessarily. I think, okay, well, I mean, it is funny that
Better be sure. That's one of them.
Better be sure.
And then he says,
Well, he says, you ain't got no future, Jack, because Jack is saying, hey, I run this city. He's already said that to
the girlfriend.
the girlfriend, Alicia. He said he can't run the city without me. So he clearly thinks a lot of himself. He plays that aspect really well. And then Grisham, the corrupt police officer, is taking payments from Eckhart is taking payments from Grisham. So he's a dirty cop. And Jack is giving him money to say, hey, cop on the inside, this new DA, Harvey Dent, is poking around our Access chemical operation. We need you to shut that down. And this is just stupid. I don't think it's not connected. But Eckhart is incensed because he said, if you want me to do something for you, I only take orders from Grisham, your boss. And it's like, he just gave you thousands of dollars.
Right.
Do what he says. It
Right.
benefits both of you if you both work for him. He says, I take orders from Grisham, who's the criminal.
Right.
So that is stupid. But he just says, you're a A1 nut boy. I've never heard that phrase before. And everybody knows it. Grisham knows it. To which Jack is incensed, pushes him in a way that I love, which is by his mouth. And then he says, better be sure, because he's saying, I'm the future. That's what precedes it. And he says, better be sure. And then he says, where you been spending your nights, meaning he knows about he and Alicia, and he goes and he tips Grisham off.
Okay. See,
Where you been spending
am
your
I
nights?
dumb? Because to me, like, where you been spending your nights to me felt like it was like another way of calling him crazy that didn't make sense.
I don't think you're dumb at all, but I
Thank
think
you.
that that's
Goodbye,
how I
listeners.
understand that's how I understand the implications of what they're saying.
Okay. That makes sense.
It's a great movie, right? It just changes the whole.
I mean, there's a lot of things here that just jumped out to me in the movie. I mean, I'm not a big plot hole guy, but this one has some pretty wild ones. Do you mind if I talk about a couple things?
No, please do.
Okay, well, first of all, the character Knox, played by Robert Wool, he's this reporter. He teams up with Vicky Vale, who has come from out of town, I believe. And
She discovered Corto Maltese, which is...
Yes. Okay. So that was interesting because actually I am dumb because Vicky Vale is a hotshot photographer. She's received some acclaim for photographing the revolution and the following genocide in Corto Maltese. And I was like, where's Corto Maltese? And I looked it up and found out it is a fictional South American country in the DC universe. Here's something. Did you notice that her Time magazine cover of the pictures of this genocide, it's Time, the logo that you know. It's a picture of a dead body on, in the hot sun that looks like a genocide photo.
A
And then it
shitty
says-
genocide photo that she's been praised for. But yeah,
Yes.
it's difficult to discern that it's even a body. But yes, please continue.
And then it says Pics by Vicky Vale.
yes, I saw that.
Do you think that that's what they put when
No.
they're like remembering the Holocaust? Pics by.
It's usually like in the smallest, like italicized under the picture inside. But like I said before, everyone is obsessed with photography in this movie.
Why do you think that is?
I think it has to do with like the way Tim Burton and Anton Furst kind of stylized Gotham, which is an element I really love about the movie. I think, say what you will about this movie compared to the new ones, I think the Batmobile and Gotham City, not every element of it, but just the design of the city look very sort of like Art Deco, because remember, this movie was shot in 88 and came out in 89. If everyone was dressed and looked like they did in 1989, this movie would be unwatchable. And there are elements of that where like,
well, that's the kind of 50s throwback thing that was popular in the 80s.
So I think maybe part of the obsession with photography is because that would have been a new art form to be in such wide use, you know, in the 20s, 50s that it's vaguely set in.
Mm-hmm.
That's my theory.
Okay. I like that. Okay, the first plot hole that I actually don't know if I have a lot of plot holes. I just things that there were questions raised.
There's a bat running around the city.
Yeah, first of all, that makes no sense. Why would you do that? The character of Knox, he and Vicky Vale go to a party to try to meet Bruce Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Vicky doesn't know Bruce Wayne because she's from out of town.
Mm-hmm.
I'll buy it. Still a stretch because he is a famous billionaire.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, fine. She doesn't know. There's no social media in 1989. Bruce Wayne isn't...
Well, she refuses to ever do any research, so that's also
she's not a journalist, she's a reporter.
Right.
Or I mean, she's
Nick
a
Knox
photographer.
researches it and she'll take photos of it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't need to know what I'm taking pictures of. I just point my camera and click.
So they get tickets.
So they go to this party, this like gala at Wayne Manor, and there's a classic sitcom like he's arrogant and stupid and I hate him and he's right behind me, isn't he? Like they do that whole thing where they're looking at some of his like gaudy possessions, Vicky and Knox, and talking about like how tacky and lame this guy must be. And then Bruce Wayne walks in and is watching it all happen, and they're doing it to him, and then he reveals that he's Bruce Wayne. It makes no sense that Alexander Knox, a Gotham City local journalist, does not know who Bruce Wayne is.
I totally agree.
Thank you.
I mean, that is like such an issue with everyone's lack of knowledge about Bruce Wayne. You mentioned that people don't have the internet. Well, in a way, reporting was better then, because reporters and researchers would have to go down to the library and do the little thing, you know, to look at old newspaper articles.
Thing.
Yeah,
he made a gesture that indicated the microfiche.
Thank
machine.
you. I couldn't remember. I too am an idiot. But yeah, to not know about what this guy even looks like. Clearly he modeled his haircut after him. So like how did it's and to not even know off the top of his head that his parents were fucking murdered. And in the comics, by the way, I should mention Tim Burton proudly states that he only read The Killing Joke and some of The Dark Knight Returns, and God does that show. But in the comics, Thomas Wayne, who's also in this movie in a flashback, is a famous surgeon who wanted to like renovate Gotham and blah blah blah. For philanthropist,
one of the good billionaires, folks.
Yeah, I mean he was in medicine, and everyone in medicine is great. So no, but I just to your point, it is so crime seems to be the only thing Knox cares about too, and he somehow is obsessed with Bruce Wayne because he wants to go to that gala. I don't remember why he even wants. Oh, because Gordon has a file on Batman. So Commissioner Gordon is going to be at this event. And Knox wants to go because Gordon has a file on him, even though the police won't admit he exists. Vicky Vale somehow has tickets.
I think just from being hot.
I think so, too. I mean, wow, is she beautiful in every single scene.
Yeah, I think it's just like probably Alfred is like, you know how like Guns N' Roses had guys who would like wrangle the most beautiful women in the crowd for the band. Alfred is out there doing that of just like, we must get some hotties at this gala.
Yeah.
Because Alfred, it's like, let's admit, Alfred is clearly vicariously living through Bruce Wayne with this whole Vicky Vale romance. He's sweet on her. He just knows he's too old. In another life, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think Alfred is... I didn't really take it that way. I mean, just to, like, my serious interpretation is, like, I think Alfred wants Master Wayne to settle down because this Batman business is bullshit. Because he's tired of running all of Batman's detective errands. Like, there's not one moment where we do see Bruce doing...
Have you looked at any of the resumes for administrative assistants?
Alfred.
I don't know why I sound like Voldemort.
No, he does. I mean, Michael Gough is conservatively 906 years old. And it's so funny because boy is he old in like an old fashioned way. We talked about earlier when they sleep together, he's just pushing Bruce to like settle down and but it's just like, dude, he's a billionaire. Like there's going to be some one night stands without. Anyways,
can we? No, actually, I think that we should, because we're all over the place and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we should talk about two things.
Sure.
First, let's drill down on this about the relationship between Vicky Vale and Bruce Wayne / Batman. And then let's talk Joker.
Please.
What are your general thoughts on this romance between Vicky Vale and Batman? Because as you said, they have a date.
Mm-hmm.
They sleep together.
Mm-hmm.
But the logic of what else follows between them is very strange to me. But
yeah.
How do you read this?
So, I mean,
tell
I think,
the folks what happens.
No, I like your reset because their relationship ties into the only like problems I've written down, and then I just want to talk about everything else. But I think their relationship is ambiguous, or is baffling rather, because they have one date where she spends the night, and then they kind of both act like they've maybe had this love affair for like 6 to 8 months, even though we only see that they slept together and are maybe going to go on another date, right?
Right.
And so what I think is that there was a lot of scenes to indicate passage of time that had to be cut, or I don't know, because there's a moment where the Joker sets up a fake date with Bruce Wayne and Vicky Vale, and Alfred communicates this to him, and Bruce says, "Wait, we aren't meeting tonight." And it's like, you've never met any night except for once. And
he's like, then, Alfred, that was really more of a hit it and quit it situation.
Well, yeah. Oh God, Alfred. Alfred is the worst.
Please talk about this.
Okay, so the night after,
he totally blows up Bruce Wayne's spot in a super uncool way.
Yeah, like a child would, who just has no idea what to do. So they sleep together, or Vicky, they have sex and Vicky sleeps because Batman has to hang upside down after they do it.
Yeah. Oh my God, I got to get my bat juices flowing.
Right. Yeah. So she's coming down the stairs the next day, gonna be late for work, but like messy hair.
Well, first she's like, "Can I see you again?" To Bruce.
Yeah, and he says, "Today's not good, and neither is tomorrow.
Yeah,
sorry."
I don't know. I don't have a cell phone.
Yeah, she does not get it. And so she's like walking down the stairs, like the world is her oyster. And she says, "Bye, Alfred." I'd be a skosh embarrassed to say goodbye to the butler, but like, whatever. It was 1989.
Do you have any cum-covered towels for me?
Would you like a plan B, madam? Anyway, so
I offer these to all the young ladies who abscond with Bruce each weekend.
So Bruce had told her, "Today's not good and neither is every day in the future." And because I'm going out of town for a while. And so Vicky says to Alfred, "Well, I'll see you when you get back from wherever you're going." And he goes,
she's assuming.
Right. That they go together.
Well, and assuming that, obviously when you get back from this vague out of town thing that you have, I'm going to be right here waiting because I am your wife now.
Right. Yeah. So Alfred goes, "Going, Miss Vale? We're going to be here for quite some time." And it's like, even that line bothers me because it's like, well, Bruce has got to go to work. Like, you might be here forever, but like, even within this house, you're not going to be here for quite some time. You fucking idiot. So
it really blows up Bruce's spot.
Absolutely. And I just want to say too, going back to Bruce's party, like this is where this version of Alfred sucks, is he is constantly telegraphing to people that Bruce Wayne is Batman.
Does he?
Yeah, Commissioner Gordon had to leave rather unexpectedly, and Bruce is trying to play it off like, "Yeah, I don't give a shit," like, whatever.
Yeah, why do I care? I'm Bruce
very
Wayne.
Unexpectedly, sir.
He had to flap away on leathery wings.
I think you mean this way, sir. Yeah, and it gets even worse in Batman Forever. The other car, sir. It's just Michael Go. Bless his heart. He needed to go.
He needed a Michael go away.
Yeah. He's the worst
Michael go
butler
to
that ever buttled. Where were we? So the romance is strange. I think it has to do with a lot of just cutting of scenes that would have indicated the passage of time, which is my big issue with this film, I don't know that would have fixed it, but I think that's a huge part of why it makes no sense that they're both so committed, even though they're both young, hot people. Is I think the passage of time is such an issue in this movie, and why it's like I can't tell if Batman's in year 1 or year 5. I can't tell if he and Joker have been embroiled in a conflict for a month or a week, because Knox says to her when she's been distracted by her one crazy night with Bruce, "What's been with you lately?" And it's like, what do you fucking mean? You guys just partnered up yesterday. And I think that a lot of scenes must have been cut to indicate more passage of time, or it's just bad
I
writing.
think that's generous on your part. I mean, I do think the context is really lacking, but I think it is supposed to all be happening within the span of a couple weeks. I think this movie takes place because it's like it starts off with the bicentennial is about to happen, and then the climax of the movie is the bicentennial. So it can't be that long. And the other thing I would say too is we're bashing a lot on how like hung up, like how clingy Vicky is, but
and Alfred,
yes.
Goes both ways.
I do think they do her character a disservice because she is ostensibly this like smart, career-driven woman. Sex with Bruce one time like completely undoes her psyche. Like she now cannot concentrate on anything.
Drunken sex, one-sided drunken sex,
yes,
I might add.
Yeah, she says she's drunk and you don't seem drunk, and he's like, it's fine. And basically, yeah, and her obsession for the rest of the movie is finding out everything she can about Bruce Wayne. Now I understand when you like somebody and you have a crush on them, and maybe you are about to date them or have started seeing them or whatever, and you're really excited about where it could go. We've all done the old social media, stalk or whatever, right? Like
we've all hidden a tree with binoculars. And,
yeah, sure. We've all gone through somebody's trash, but it just is really stretches credulity to me that this woman, it's like because of this one night of sex with Bruce, is like she can think about nothing else. But equally strange is his reaction, in which a major conflict, an internal conflict for the character of Bruce Wayne for the rest of the movie, and again at Alfred's constant urging, is that he should tell her that he's Batman. This woman that he didn't even want to see badly enough,
who's a photojournalist. She's going to take some photos and tell people.
They don't know each other.
No.
Like they don't know shit about each other, and he is at one point in the movie about to tell her that he's Batman premeditatedly. And only doesn't because the Joker comes in and disrupts. So I don't have really a ton of other thoughts about the through line of their romance, except that it's really taking massive liberties with how involved these two get with each other.
Well, I think that the way I think it may have to do with what I was generously saying of scenes that may have been cut or something, rewrites during the shooting. But I also think that it's played to you, which is something Batman would never do in the comics. Batman doesn't need to tell anyone that he's Batman, ever. But is that, like, they're in love, which is hilarious, like you said, but that there's this other side of him that is so prominent and is maybe, like, his actual side. He has to let her in to take that next step of sleeping together a second time. That she needs to know he's Batman because he can't present this facade of Bruce Wayne to her. So I think that's maybe what they're driving at, but I think Alfred just convinces him because Bruce clearly doesn't want to do it. In that scene you're referencing, and this is maybe my last problem with the movie, he pushes her to the ground, to the couch, just because she's pissed that he didn't call her.
That was gross.
It was gross, and it really...
And tells her to shut up.
Yes, and I have a really embarrassing story about that. We'll get to a second.
Okay.
So
she's chewing him out.
She's chewing him out in a very 1980s way of like women. You sleep with them once, they get mad, you don't call them, and then they gab. Yeah.
Don't they understand that you're Batman?
You just want to brood and listen to On a Friday. But so she is pissed and hot as fuck in that scene.
She have the glasses?
She has the braid.
Oh, the braid is
yes.
very,
oh
is
my
very
God.
attractive.
Okay. Sorry, listeners.
No, just taking a quick,
I just got a boner.
Just a quick beat for horniness here on Idiot.
Or naughtiness, as we like to call it. So anyways, so she's going on and on a bit much, if you ask Bruce, and he pushes her to the couch softly, and that feels like a Michael Keaton note. I do not think he wanted to do it. And am I romanticizing this? Yes. But like he pushes her down, he says, listen, you seem like a really nice girl, but for right now, shut up. I need to tell you something.
Yeah.
Here's my embarrassing story.
Oh.
I did not ever in my life
You were
push
about to say that
a
you
woman.
did this.
I did not. I told a girl, she seems like a really nice girl, but for now, shut up. And it did not
Can you
go
mouth
well.
to me who it is? Okay.
And, you know, I didn't say it in the... it's just so funny to me because it's like I was thinking about this and, you know, we should
Did
probably
you
cut
know
this.
you were quoting Batman? When
Oh,
you did
yeah.
this?
I was like, I know this girl hasn't seen this movie, and this works. I never, ever, like, you know...
This is how you talk to a lady.
Yes, but, I mean, it's so funny because I was having this whole Vicky Vale type crisis with like grappling with this scene. It broke my mind because I was thinking about it and I go, I'm middle of the road when it comes to like do video games and like movies that are so like shoot 'em up without you know, there being consequences. Does that influence like the jury's out on that? People who play a lot of video games will say they've done studies and you're like, oh really, when? How many people? And they know nothing, but it's not definitive that it doesn't influence that type of behavior. I don't emulate movies I watch, but it is so funny because I was like, holy shit, I thought that would work, and it did not. But it's so funny to me because
What did she do? Hit you?
She just said like, how dare you, and that did not work. And
that was not cool.
yeah, it was not cool. So I think that's the most embarrassing admission we'll ever have on
It's
Video
very
Talk.
vulnerable of you to share that, and thank you for sharing
Yes,
it.
yes,
And
yes.
you know, like we love when people change and grow and learn from their mistakes and experiences. What's funny is you're asking the question is, does culture negatively influence the youth of America? And I think the answer is yes, if they watch it every single day for a year. Does seem to be what the
It
data
influences
is bearing
50% because I didn't do the push, but I did the disrespectful, awful thing to say, you seem like a nice girl that I've known my whole life. Shut up.
I know. I'm also like, you've seen, because when you mouth it, I'm like, was this when you met?
No.
This
is when I got dumped.
So you're like, actually, right now you don't seem like a nice girl. You're breaking my heart.
You're not shutting up. No, don't break up with me.
Yeah, you were trying to say it before she got to the part where she dumped you.
Listen, I really don't want... like, oh no. It was a defense mechanism.
Yeah. Shut up.
Those are all the problems I had. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I have one big problem. And this is ubiquitous throughout the movie. So Gotham is meant to be New York equivalent. There seem to be about 38 townspeople in all of Gotham City, 12 public officials, the police and Joker's henchmen. I did a tally if it sounds like I'm reading. So the police and Joker's henchmen add another 20. Indoors, about 16 to 18 people exist at any given time. And then on top of that, that 16 group of people is 8 mafia bosses, Alfred reporters, and then the patrons at the Flugenheim Museum. So my total tally is 60 people exist in Gotham City. And if you think about the amount
it's like a super corrupt like Amish village
where each person has a police officer.
Yeah.
Because that's the main thing. I don't know if that's a budgetary restriction, but like you go to San Francisco, right? Like not the size of New York. If there is granted, whatever, there's hundreds of people around the courthouse if there's a major decision happening. Sacramento, that is the capital, but it's much smaller than San Francisco. There are hundreds of reporters, and like there are 12 reporters when anyone's coming out.
They've all been killed by these scab-covered criminals that are running around.
Well, there's only like a few criminals besides Joker's henchmen.
Yeah, but per capita,
right? It's almost like Russia or something. Like each person gets a police officer to themselves. I don't know. Those are my main gripes, and that one is more just I just love to laugh at it.
You know what? No, I want to talk Joker as its own kind of piece.
Listeners
here,
are exhausted of the negativity.
But you're kind of you're indicating towards what was a big problem for me. I think I've said I think the script is really messy, really meandering, and I'm gonna say also I got pretty bored. Like something about the structure of this movie, it just kind of goes and goes, and I don't feel the proper beats happening. So the script is a big problem for me.
So the pacing sounds like an issue for you too.
Yes, it felt really long to me. At 2 hours, it felt quite long. Directorially, I think this movie is really lacking a kind of vibe and atmosphere. And I say that in relation to your Gotham comment because it just felt very, for a Batman movie, it felt very brightly lit. It felt very soundstagey, and
well, yeah, Pinewood.
Yeah, I know. I mean, and
could see aliens in parts of it.
Yeah, it had a really. It felt like kind of. I know it's just old, but it felt kind of cheap, and it felt more. In terms of, I know this is the movie that like turned Batman dark,
but well, yeah. In retrospect, that is hilarious.
To me, elements. It is much closer to the 1960s Batman than the Christopher Nolan Batman.
Sure.
And I prefer the Tim Burton Batman to the Christopher Nolan Batman.
Good. Let's get that out of the way.
This is a very general thing, but watching this movie again, and I'm going to just put this out there now. I think that maybe 5-6 episodes from now of talking about Radiohead, maybe we need to come back to this and watch Batman Returns. My memory of Batman Returns is that because it's winter and because I'm guessing I know this was a high budget movie, but they got a bigger budget. That movie, my memory of it is more favorable than my watching of this movie because of, I think, the Christmas and everything. It just feels like it has, I'm sorry, I cannot think of a better word, so I just keep saying atmosphere over and over, but it feels like it has more atmosphere to me, which was really missing from this. So taking Batman Returns off the table because I haven't revisited it.
Well, Michelle Pfeiffer is certainly a much better female lead, I think, than Kim Basinger. If not even a better actress, although she is, but it's her
a much
character,
more complicated character.
Yes.
Is Batman Returns, in your opinion, better than this movie?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Okay, is that?
I don't know.
The conventional wisdom?
I don't know. I mean, I that's an opinion. I mean, this is all subjective. But like,
but in your opinion, is it less good than this movie?
Yes.
Okay, that's disappointing.
But in different ways. I mean, it's certainly more cohesive, but it has a lot of the same problems as well. I think Michelle Pfeiffer, who's hot and blonde, like Vicky Vale, but Michelle Pfeiffer is an amazing
curly
actress.
Hair.
Well, I mean, Vicky has curly hair too. She has 80s curls. In scenes.
Vicky has wavy hair. I believe there is a difference.
So I think Michelle Pfeiffer as a female lead, is just much better. But I think this main problem is twofold in that one, which is the same as you were just describing. The villains, you have no idea what they want or why, as it pertains to Batman or anything. And you agree that's a problem with this one, right? Yeah, I think so. But we'll cover why I can forgive that in a minute. But the other thing, too, that is a really odd choice to me is similar to like Revenge of the Sith and this new Obi-Wan show. The main goal of the Penguin is to kill the firstborn child of every family in Gotham City, which is crazy and wrong. The thing I love about that movie is the Selena Kyle Catwoman Batman relationship, which I still think has not been done better. Sizzles. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I listeners, I was talking about her hotness, which she is really hot, but she is amazing in that movie as a performer.
Michelle Pfeiffer's great.
She's amazing. And Danny DeVito's good too, but he's so out of place and so Tim Burton-y in a way that I can accept with the Joker in this film. And he turns in a good performance, but he's disgusting and terrifying and not really to great effect. It just goes off the rails. Bigger budget, was far less successful. I used to think I liked it more too. I definitely prefer this one.
Well, let me lay down the gauntlet here. Will you watch it again?
Yeah.
Several episodes from now for us to...
Of course.
We've
I'm going
got
to listen to Kid A and do a podcast with you.
Yeah.
I'll watch Batman Returns again. I'll
All right,
suffer.
there we go. So we've got it. Listeners, we have 2 podcasts going now in the same feed. I'm hoping that we can land this sucker somewhere around the 2-hour mark. And so,
where are we at?
We're at 90 minutes.
Oh, perfect. Okay, cool.
But before we talk about the Joker, I wanted to say my kind of less than favorable view of this movie, in my estimation now. I'm enjoying talking about it a lot more than I enjoyed watching it, I guess is what I'll say. And it raised the question for me, because I would have thought this was my favorite Batman. And like everybody else, I was pretty enthused about Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. Those have really, really dropped for me in the passing years. I think that the thing that does really hold up for me is Heath Ledger and his performance. I didn't like the third one of that franchise at the time, and I don't like it now. It got so oppressively dark and so far away from anything that is fun about a comic book, even though the Batman comics can be quite dark.
Sure.
I really, really enjoyed this new Batman. And I don't want to spend too much airtime on it, but I really liked it. I went in with pretty minor expectations and had a blast. It's 3 hours long, and I had fun almost the entire time. I kind of walked away from this going, I guess The Batman with Robert Pattinson, I think is my favorite Batman movie.
It's my favorite.
And that was a very surprising revelation
to me, it's like, it's
because I liked it, but I wasn't like, that was my favorite Batman movie.
Yeah, I have so much fun, and this is, I guess, a point of differentiation. I do have so much fun, start to finish, in this movie. It's not 3 hours long, first of all, so that I have the time, or I have the perfect amount of time to not be exhausted. You know, there are 3-hour movies I love, but I mean,
The Batman.
Well, I don't love that movie. I really, really liked it.
Okay.
But they're on such different eras. It's like that. It's like trying to say, well, what would Ben Franklin think about an iPhone? It's like his mind would explode. Is what he would think. Or I don't know. Maybe that's not the best example. They're on such opposite poles. They may as well not even be the same thing.
Right.
And that includes up through Batman and Robin. I would say in the era of modern Batman being Batman Begins to this new one. And including those other ones, but it just feels unfair to this movie to even. I don't know. It is a better movie, though. You're right. So I guess
But you know what? To give this movie, to give the 1989 Batman a compliment. What I really liked about this new Batman is it felt like a modern update of kind of the tone of the Tim Burton Batman. Where it is dark.
Yeah,
and it is, but it's doing it's a fine line that it's walking of treating the subject matter, which is obviously most comic book subject matter is patently ridiculous, giving it some weight and some seriousness, but not acting like this is the most serious thing in the world.
Agreed.
And it feels like a comic book.
Agreed.
And so I do think it is building off of a tone that Tim Burton was going for in the world he built. I just think that maybe time has not been very kind to this movie, and I do really feel this is 50 different scripts cobbled together.
Yeah. No, I think that's really well said. And actually, I would correct myself and say I did love the new Batman movie as a Batman movie, and I'm not super into superheroes, I'm not super into superhero movies. But Batman stands alone in that regard. I just gobble up anything Batman, even if it sucks. And I really, really liked it for all the reasons you just mentioned.
Let's talk Joker.
All right.
I feel like I've said all my problems with the movie enough, so I want to talk about
Jack.
What do we like about this Joker? Because it's pretty fun.
So, I mean, I like the very first scene that you see him even before he's the Joker. Jack Nicholson earned, like I alluded to, every penny of his $100 million that he ended up making long term.
Yeah.
$96 million if you take it on the high end. Because he gets to play Jack Nicholson of that era and probably today. Just when he is Jack, Jerry Hall, the actress, Alicia, is complimenting how he looks. He's saying, "Hey, I'm having an affair with my boss's girlfriend," and it's no
saying
big
it
deal.
to the person he's having an affair
Yeah,
with, as
it's
you
no-
do,
you ain't-
setting
yeah.
the scene.
So she says,
As you know, we're having an affair.
"Oh, I think that's pulled off really well." She says,
No, I
Christian
know. I'm
knew
just
that,
kidding.
oh yeah.
I just love exposition where characters say something to somebody who doesn't need to know or would know.
That's the thing, though. Jack Nicholson, to me, is so good in this movie that even when his lines are, you could tell him being like, "I get to do whatever I want," I like it works for me. He is so funny in this movie, and it's not
funny.
that thing of. Nowadays, what's very big, and I like this kind of humor, but I think The Lonely Island really popularized this of, hey, let's have this person who takes himself very seriously and is kind of a joke. Let's pay them $1 million to be themselves, and we'll interact with them, and it'll be hilarious.
Right.
And that's not what this is. Jack Nicholson,
Like the Michael Bolton thing.
like that, or like Nicolas Cage, or whatever,
right.
and that can be very funny. I'm exhausted of it at this point. But or like Russell Crowe is in the new Thor movie. I mean, I don't think Russell Crowe doesn't know the tone of it, but Russell Crowe thinks he's awesome,
Right?
And that's why it's funny. So Russell Crowe, if you're listening, you're a joke. But
and he is.
yeah. But Jack Nicholson, to my knowledge, and except for Anger Management, which would have come out 14 years after this, was not a comedic actor. He's a brilliant actor, but every time when he's still Jack, that scene we were talking about, and she says, "You look fine." He looks at her so repugnant and says, "I didn't ask."
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah. And I mean, I'm not endorsing any of the treatment towards women in this film, but he is so himself and awesome.
Right.
And
it
fat.
makes sense for him to be a scoundrel.
She walks through the room later when he's meeting with her boyfriend, his boss, and he totally gives her the "we're fucking right" look.
Yes, absolutely.
With no shame whatsoever.
Completely undresses her with his eyes in front of her man.
Yeah, and I mean, we've harped on the poor writing, the directing, some of the look of the film. Every scene, in my opinion, that Jack Nicholson / the Joker, Jack Napier / the Joker are in, there is such care with the lighting, with the arrangement of the set, with the music, not the music necessarily, but all of the things that you could say that we talked about are kind of a mess. And that's kind of what the focus of somebody like Tim Burton is the Joker. Like, is the grotesque, the bombastically ridiculous, the clown, the whatever. And in a way, I think that, I do think that some of the scenes with Batman in them are good for the time, but like, it makes sense that that's where Tim Burton's focus would be, why he would like The Killing Joke and barely read The Dark Knight Returns, because The Dark Knight Returns is about Batman. It's not about the Joker. And like, there's a scene right before he turns into Joker where he flips a card, and the sound effect and score is like perfectly timed, and that's in the wheelhouse of any young director who knows what the fuck they're doing. But it's just, you could just tell Joker's reveal. He comes out of the shadows, and it's like really well shot, and it's just that's where Tim Burton's focus is. And I think Jack Nicholson, at this stage, I don't know that he's ever really phoned in a role, but like. He had been the biggest man on the planet. He was very comfortable with where he was at. He could be choosy with his movies. And you think about 3 hours of makeup, it doesn't matter how much money you're making if you're already rich at that point. You have to sit for that. And I feel like he really gives it his all. Physically, he is hilarious. We can talk about some of my favorite hilarity moments. That's my opinion. What about you?
I also really like it. Look, I think that Jack Nicholson sells the shit out of it.
Yes.
He does a really good job. The comic timing of the stuff that's supposed to be funny really works. He made me laugh out loud.
I want to hear some of your
times.
favorite Joker jokes.
Okay, my favorite Joker joke in the whole movie is there's a scene early in the movie. It's like a callback that what I love about it is this joke is only for the Joker.
Yes.
The person he's doing it for doesn't know what he's talking about, but the audience does. So early in the movie, when he's not Joker, there's a scene where Jack Palance grabs him and in this very stagey way,
very distinctive voice.
He says, "I need someone I could trust on this," and then he grabs Jack at this point by his arms and says, "And you are my number one guy." And then later in the movie, when he's Joker, he asks his henchman, Bob the Goon, to do something, and he grabs Bob, and he goes, "And Bob, you are my number one a guy. And
Yes, sir.
it's amazing. I love it
So
because it's like
funny.
this is a private joke just for Joker. Bob doesn't know what he's calling
I
back
like to imagine Jack Palance on set going like, "Fuck you, I could do you."
Do you think there's a chance that Nicholson improvised that? Because it felt like maybe
By that, do you mean everything in the movie?
Yes,
yes, yeah.
It felt like an improv to me, where he's just like,
Yeah. Well, Tracy Walters like trying so hard not to laugh too. It's amazing.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite Joker joke. I will say, I've said I don't understand what the Joker wants. You've helped clear that up a little bit. I do still think it is a little bit of the fault of the movie that it's not more clear. I think that we writers got a better idea as Joker went on in the public consciousness of you can highlight one aspect of the Joker and have that be your angle. This one is a little bit lacking an angle for me. And I think that
because he's only funny, or
he's just very goofy, and I think that works, right? That's very much baked into the cake of who the Joker is that he's insane, and you're scared of him because he's acting like a clown while he's, waving a gun in your face. But I think that like the next iteration of the Joker, being Mark Hamill's Joker in the Batman animated series, taps in a little more to what they're hinting at with this Joker, which is the seething rage underneath it all. Because that is maybe my favorite Joker is Mark Hamill's presentation. And I just think that if it was written a little more into it,
interesting.
he could have been angrier, because that's what's also scary about Jack Nicholson. An observation that I will borrow from my girlfriend that she made is that Jack Nicholson is scarier than the Joker. And so that maybe he's a little scarier without the makeup than he is once it's on. And I just think that they could have honed in on the rage a little more, the same way the Heath Ledger Joker, it's like his thing is he's an anarchist, right? And then the Joaquin Phoenix Joker, it's like,
but don't skip Jared Leto.
Jared Leto's thing is that he's like a rockabilly Joker. And then the Joaquin Phoenix's thing is like he's like a Joker who's like a broken, disturbed man.
Yes, yeah.
And I just think that it's because of this that they were able to build on that later. But I do think that it would be cool if Jack Nicholson had gotten to play it when the idea of the Joker as this like really crystallized character that you can treat pretty seriously.
Okay.
It would have benefited from
Interesting. So, like, as covered before, this is all subjective. I would compliment this movie in saying that it's hilarious, and Jack in particular, and it's also terrifying in moments for me. And I think because it is so balanced, it's like that. I don't think Ollie is maybe at the age where you would show him any of the Batman movies, but this would be very low on my list.
Batman is for grown-ups.
Exactly. If I had a son your age, this would be so low on the list of superhero movies to show him, because I think that there are moments in this movie that feature Jack Nicholson as the Joker that are so scary, and they're kind of limited, but they go part and parcel. So I don't.
Well, what's your favorite Joker moment?
Well, humor-wise,
I bet the scariest moment is probably the same for us.
I'm glad you're dead.
That's pretty scary. I was thinking when he brings in his mutilated girlfriend.
Well, those are the three. So let me just quickly highlight those. So like he kills a guy after, and in what is largely a comical scene because of how 80s it is, but I want to
joy buzzer
hone in on the psychology of it. It's really creepy because, and this scene scared the shit out of me as a kid, and I would fast forward it by my own will that summer I watched it. And I think for what is a good telltale sign that I was scared by the right stuff, like you hear about these serial killers as kids, and it's like, wow, they were killing animals, and of course they were. I'm glad that I was scared by this, because if you think conceptually what it means, it's creepy as shit, because he kills this guy with his joke buzzer, he roasts him alive, and then he talks to him after. And to me, that is always one of the scariest aspects of like the Ted Bundy and the Jeffrey Dahmers, is that they would keep them around to treat them like friends they just couldn't have.
Right.
So I think that's terrifying. And he also says, "I'm glad you're dead," which in movies when that kind of line occurs is only for my dad died, and the person's like, I'm so sorry, and they're like, you know what, he was an asshole, and you're like, how freeing that must be. In this, he's talking to a corpse saying, I'm glad you're dead, and I think that just conceptually is terrifying.
Sure.
I think the end where he has knocked them off, and what is also a comical scene, he's just kind of kicking the bricks that they're on with no regard to his own
Vale
life.
and Batman are hanging off of a ledge.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, of a church tower.
And it shows how much Joker loves doing this and doesn't really care if he lives or dies. He's just enjoying, and that may be why he gets away with such insane shit. He's stomping on the boots, and you hear, and this is Jack Nicholson being amazing. He's just going, hey, Batty, I can't do it. And he's just stomping on it. And I think that's really scary. The mirror scene after he gets his plastic surgery is terrifying to me. This is all just to me.
Oh, I agree with everything you're saying.
The scene where
I think you're talking, all the parts you're describing are the best parts in the movie.
Yeah, but I mean, I think he is more hilarious than terrifying, but I think that that has to do with how those scenes are scored too. There's either little music or much. And then the scene where he's cutting out what look like war crimes that would be classified by the CIA. So he's doing that with a lot of joy that's comical, but if you kind of just look at again, these are the most well-composed.
He has like a fetish that feels a little bit sexual too about violence.
Absolutely. And so I think that, so those are my points on how I think the balance is really well done. And what did you want to talk about? The most hilarious?
Yeah, what's your favorite Joker goofy?
It's a really
Joker
subtle
being a
moment, but
goofball?
my favorite part is it's towards the end where Batman crash lands in his Batpod, which that whole run up is just amazing. And they can't find Batman's body or whatever. Joker needs to take the princess to the steeple, and literally, and Batman needs to rescue her. And he looks at Vicky Vale and he says, "Darling, I've got to get you to church on time." And he makes this face that is so funny. And the way it's scored, too, it's very like Tim Burton synth, like, duh, after he does it, like, oh, what's going to happen? And part of it's the way it's scored, but like, to me, that is like a moment that you see in like comedians I love, like in Steve Buscemi in Wedding Singer, like, ooh, I like her about George, and then makes a so anytime there's a joke followed by the character playing it very serious is a style of comedy I love. MacGruber does that a lot. Will Forte as MacGruber does that a lot. He'll be saying the most ridiculous shit and make these really intense, serious faces. And, it's I guess basic comedy chops if you're a really talented actor, but it's just like those to me are the most brilliant moments. I love when he's saying to Batman, it's a very dramatic scene, but also it's very funny when the Mayor Borg is talking about why they can't have the festival due to safety concerns. And he pushes Mayor Borg out of frame on the TV. I think that is just hilarious. That's more of a whole scene thing. And I love after the visit to Vicky Vale's apartment. Well, when he first arrives to Vicky Vale, he repeats Bruce, which he could not have heard, but it seems like he's mocking Michael Keaton a little bit. He goes, I like this place, lots of space, which is what Bruce said like 10 seconds earlier.
Oh, I put that the scene at Vicky Vale's apartment is one of the most strange scenes in the entire movie and is maybe my favorite scene of the whole movie.
Dude, for sure, because that's the beauty of this movie.
It's very weird.
It's so illogical, but the acting is so good, mostly, in that scene. By everyone, honestly. The Michael Keaton
even
has his
Michael
worst...
Keaton's Let's Get Nuts things, it makes no sense, but it's really fun.
It's
and
really
he's
fun.
charismatic enough to pull
and
it off.
He realizes that, and this is a change to the source material, I should point out. In the comics, Joe Chill kills Thomas and Martha Wayne. In this, they retconned it to make it so that a young Jack Napier, in a flashback scene that I think is also terrifying, murdered Bruce's parents. And they used an actor who is the best looking version of a young Jack Nicholson I've ever seen. And I love how movies used to do that. They don't have to CGI the fuck out of an old person.
Yes. We can suspend our disbelief for you to cast a younger version of an actor.
Dude, and I was thinking about that. I was like, that's how memory works too. So it's almost more realistic than this nightmare of Peter Cushing.
Hey kid, you ever dance
with the devil in the pale moonlight?
And so he repeats that line that he said he was going to murder Bruce Wayne, which is a terrifying concept as well. This guy has no regard for life, such that he'll murder children as well. So Michael Keaton realizes that in this scene, and Joker attempts to kill Bruce Wayne. He knows who Bruce is, and I love that he'll just kill a billionaire. Like, wouldn't we all want to do that? And
yeah, he doesn't do it with a guillotine like we will when the revolution comes. But.
Yeah, but his exit is hilarious and sad. He does this whole speech that he's crying on the inside, the sad cloud thing. But then you're like, oh, is this guy really heartbroken? No, he's not, because he just goes,
Yeah, makes fart noises as he leaves. And it fits with the music very well.
Very well. It's such a good scene.
You know what? Also, highlighting something else that I really loved, that I thought was really cool, is one of Joker's, and I think this is the best. I think the Joker as an artist angle. I wanted to say this when I was saying,
fun.
I think it's a really cool idea. I just don't think that I think they insert it too late in the movie and don't really explore it in a very interesting way.
But Walker, he gets his police file where his interests were chemistry, science, and art.
I understand. But I just think
I'm agreeing with you.
No, I know. I think it's a really cool idea for an angle on the Joker. I just wish that they hadn't. It's literally over an hour into the movie when all of a sudden Joker's talking about how he's an artist and he wants to be an artist. It's
the
strange.
world's first fully functioning homicidal artist.
But the thing that I think that he does before that is very Jokery and very comic booky is one of his first crime sprees is he poisons all these beauty supplies and toiletry supplies all over Gotham so that in combo they kill the user of the products and they die with a crazy
rictus grin.
Yeah, rictus grin. Thank you. And it's very effective, it's very freaky,
creepy,
and very Jokery.
Love that Joker.
And the commercial. So Joker cuts into a news program with a commercial for Joker products with dead bodies that he's using as props of people who have used his products with the smiles, and it's being plugged by the two models that he's killed that the news report is about. And it is, as a short film within the movie, this Joker commercial is really fucked up and really effective, and also has plenty of Joker being funny.
And terrifying.
It's really freaky. And it really was like, oh, this is like good serial killer stuff. Like the taunting the media and the authorities.
And the fact that okay, he has these dead bodies and is animating them somehow. And
really
the scene
freaky.
within or outside of that scene of the news reporter dying is also terrifying. The way it's lit. It's like such Tim Burton where he works. And I think there's multiple scenes where Tim Burton is firing on all cylinders and so are the actors. But they're almost always Joker-centric scenes. And
which is what Tim Burton said he wasn't very interested in Batman.
Like
he was interested in the Joker.
Yeah.
He's a freak like me. Is that what he said?
Yeah, something to that effect.
Oh
I like the
God.
Joker because he's a freak like me. I don't.
Did Michael Jackson just pop
I'm
in?
sorry. That is kind of how he sounds, though. Yeah. No, that's New and Approved Joker products.
Yeah. Love that Joker.
It's fucking creepy. He's been using Brand X.
Okay, there's one last. Is it okay if I move on?
Yeah, of course.
There's one last Joker aspect that I wanted to talk about with you. Now I know this is a silly nitpick for a movie. I'll admit I'm being slightly humorous in my quibble with this. But before Joker becomes Joker, this is a normal organized crime syndicate where everybody is kind of a mobster
in a town of
or
38
a goon.
people, yeah.
I'm sorry.
In a town of 38 people, yes.
In the town of 38 people, and 30 of them are mobsters. You can't trust anybody. and the other 8 are all mayors somehow. But once Joker kills Grisham and takes over, there is a wardrobe and
just a general look.
decorative change.
Yes.
To this crime organization. And I just think it is so funny that on day one, everybody has gotten fully Joker-fied in a way that I'm like, what was the budget and process of making everything into this aesthetic? First of all, why are the Joker's guys dressed like the Black Panthers? Did you notice that?
I did.
They are all in
they're
Black
berets
Panther costumes.
that are turned to the side.
They all wear black berets and black jackets. They're dressed like Black Panthers.
Well, they have the Joker's logo on them too.
They do. They do.
I don't disagree with you.
And also it's a good enough answer to me if someone was just like Black Panthers look cool. It'd be a cool way for bad guys.
Well,
to look.
and I mean,
just kind of like.
The implication is dangerous on so many grounds because these are all white henchmen under a white Joker.
Well, except for 2 Chinese ones who do martial arts.
Oh, one of them looked Mexican to me.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we'll cut that.
Here's what's safe to say. The only non-white members of the Joker's crew are there to do
Correct.
martial arts.
Correct.
Yes.
Which is
And that's not us being racist.
No,
that's
no,
the
no.
movie being racist.
Absolutely. And producer John Peters said the scene of the karate fight that Batman sort of Indiana Joneses him is why the movie made $600 billion or whatever. And it's like, okay, sure. Well, I think when you only have a gang that controls an entire city of 6 people, you can enact change really easily, Walker.
Well, their first big stunt that they do in front of City Hall, everyone is doing very detailed mime work. And I'm like...
Some better than others.
Well,
The first mime sucks. The second one's great.
But I'm kind of like, did the Joker hire mimes who are okay with doing crimes? Or did he train all these mafiosos to do mime work? Or... did he get a bunch of unwitting performing mimes who don't know that they are a part of a criminal conspiracy?
No, because the mimes are the ones who fire with their Tommy guns after he says, the pen is mightier than the sword.
So I understand that the Joker has a flair for theatrics, but when did they all learn to do mime?
I think that, here's what I think. I think Grisham had a legit crew of 12 gangsters.
Okay.
And since there's only 8
Third
left,
of the town.
I did count. There's only 8 of them left. These were the craziest...
This was like the Berserker crew.
Yeah, exactly. That could still be given orders, but only if those orders are to cause chaos and kill people.
Right.
Because he does say after he takes over the 5 families in a scene that is very hilarious, and also the scene I talked about where he talks to the dead bodies, he says, I say we drive the city into the ground, which is really usually not what organized crime's goal is. It might be the result, but their goal is to keep commerce running and unjustly suck funds out. He doesn't really seem to care about that, which is again another element.
That chaos element.
Another element that I think Christopher Nolan
money.
Exactly, really kind of fleshed out through painful, awful, overly long dialogue, but nonetheless fleshed out. So I think that might be the explanation as to how this crew was converted to purple jackets and helicopter that has a Joker logo on it. It is very funny though.
Those are kind of my general
Well,
thoughts.
before we go,
what
do you
about
think about the showdown at the end? In the church steeple.
That's okay.
Okay. I think that for a Batman that could not turn his head,
this costume is unwieldy.
it is unwieldy. I think that it's shot well enough in certain scenes to not look maybe kind of how you felt about it, was that it looked really cheap. I think in certain angles and certain parts it looks good.
I mean, it looked expensive for the time. It's just, boy, what a long way we've come.
Oh, totally. A Batman can turn his head now.
And that's the one thing that has gotten better in America since 1989.
Yeah. So I think the fighting choreography is actually quite good in that scene. I think the guy who kicks his ass should have been Batman. That guy's awesome. He's so strong and powerful.
I think it's fun, and I do like that as Joker gets kind of hemmed in more and more in the fight, he starts doing a quicker and quicker succession of bits.
I love that. You hit a guy with glasses. I sent Walker a text message that he did not reply to, but I assume he looked at, of me with glasses making the hand symbols, and he goes, you wouldn't hit a guy with glasses, would you?
Yeah, that the glasses that appear from nowhere. I also really love, it's not a Joker joke, but when Batman says, you killed my parents, and Jack Nicholson's line read, but he goes, you idiot!
So that touches on an interesting thing too. So Joker does regret it though, because up to that point we've seen that it set him free. But there's a very quick line where he says, and I can't change it, and don't think that I didn't try.
I'm sorry, I remember the line.
What?
He goes, you dropped me in that vat of chemicals. That wasn't easy to get over.
Yes.
And don't think that I haven't tried.
Yeah, so, and it does seem like he snaps out of it for that 1 second. But this movie is not The Shining. There's no deeper meaning here. It's just interesting that he does express regret. I think, though, that scene is very well done overall for a non-head turning Batman. And I really find Joker's death to be such an 80s conceit. You had to kill your villain. They specifically don't do that in the new ripoff. And I think Joker, even though this is more the way it's shot, I think his death after he's fallen to his death is also terrifying.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, with the like chatterbox going.
Yeah, I think that's terrifying. And the last thing I want to say, we talked about Sam Raimi for a quick second with Danny Elfman. The homages to this movie in Spider-Man 2002 are so unbelievably apparent. Everything from Willem Dafoe's kind of vibe in certain scenes, but there's a balloon scene in Spider-Man. Mary Jane, played by Kirsten Dunst, the way she screams is identical to Vicky Vale. The way it kind of ends in this movie where Batman does his batarang to save them and they almost look like they're pirouetting. Sorry, Salisbury Hill. Is in Spider-Man. So there's a lot of things just if you want to watch the two back to back. It's a very nice way of paying homage but not directly lifting.
I really enjoyed getting to watch this movie with the idea of talking about it with you. Was there any trivia that you wanted to cover before we bid our listeners adieu here?
I think I covered it, most of it with the casting, and Jack Nicholson's salary has a lot of lore to it. Listeners, if you're going to watch Batman Returns after listening to this, you're insane. But Vicky Vale does not appear in the second one. She does get mentioned, though.
Yeah, died off camera.
Yeah.
Died in the Cordo Maltese.
Died in the court of Alec Baldwin.
Oh, was he like, you're not doing that?
Probably. Wait a minute. Yeah. You're going to get pregnant in 5 years with Ireland.
Somebody who I will treat wonderfully. Should we?
I got to interview Woody Allen. Hold on.
Oh, that's this.
Okay. We're not going to get political. We already said it.
Not going to talk about divisive politicians, Alec Baldwin.
And murderers,
and
Alec Baldwin. No, this was so fun.
Now,
dude.
to be fair, one of them is only an accused rapist.
Sorry.
Hey, did the Joker just make an appearance on this podcast? Now, okay, one last question, and you can answer this, or we can leave it as an open question.
Sure.
Is doing vandalism on the paintings in the Flugenheim Museum, do you think that is fun for the Joker's goons, or does it feel beneath them? Are they like, hey, yesterday I was breaking arms, extorting people, and today I'm throwing paint around in a museum? They seem really into it, but I kind of wonder if they're afraid of their boss.
Oh, no, I think that they're absolutely having fun.
This is like,
This is a
Grisham never
party
let
for
us
them.
do this.
I mean, look at the guy who's carrying the candles and the glasses. His concern with the Joker's happiness is not that of a scared victim. It's that of just wanting to do such a nice job for his boss.
Oh, I love that. And you said it's a party for them. And on that note, we will go out on Party Man by Prince. Oh, and there's the... That's the Joker talking to Lawrence. And this is the song that plays when they go into the museum and they mess with all the paintings. This isn't a Batman movie. This song.
It's one of the best scenes, too.
This is... Can you imagine? What if in the new Batman in 2022, same movie, Robert Pattinson brooding around, but when the credits start rolling, this is what they play. Can you imagine?
I think it'd be great.
I think it
really
would be great,
improved it.
too.
I mean, they had Nirvana playing,
Right.
right?
Which-
Is that Nirvana?
They played Nirvana, and me and my friend Eric, shout out to Eric who saw it with me, when it revealed that Batman was listening to something
Is
in the
he
way.
actually listening to
Yes,
it?
because Alfred comes in and he turns it down. So Batman was riding around his motorcycle listening to Nirvana. Me and my friend Eric scream laughed in the theater, a full theater, and nobody else laughed in the entire theater.
Wow.
Any closing thoughts while Party Man takes us out?
I would just say, no disrespect to Heath Ledger's performance, which I do think is amazing in a completely different way. This is, bar none, my favorite Joker. And to the extent that I think some of Heath Ledger's greatest scenes are paying homage to this performance. So,
And I'm a Cesar Romero man. And with that, listeners, we hope you've enjoyed this diversion excursion. Don't worry, we'll be back to discussing the boys pretty soon.
Yeah. What?
The handsome man is never far from our thoughts.
He should have played Batman.
That would be great. I mean, he's tall enough, and he
Yeah.
looks kind of like Ben Affleck.
He likes to observe.
Just like this Batman.
Yes, he's passive like Batman. Listeners, we will be back next week discussing Kid A, I believe. And in the meantime, have a great week. Enjoy your live your damn life. Go watch Batman and see if we were right about the things we said.
Yeah.
I am your host, Walker Glenn.
And I am Zach Glenn.
And we will see you next time.
Bye.
Take care. Idiotalk is a Glenn Brothers production. Get in touch with us at idiotalk.podcast@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at idiotalk.podcast. And thanks for listening to Idiotalk.